right. Welcome to another episode of the Practical Wealth Show. So today I have real estate investor Ola Dantis, and I'm gonna we're gonna talk about so we're in, if you're following my 5 principles of personal finance, we're in principle 5, velocity of money, right? So remember, there's 4 asset classes: business, real estate, paper, and commodities. So Curtis wants you saving money, and we're going to talk about what to do to grow your cash flow and to level up your business. And this is what he helps people do. So Ola, let me tell you a little bit about him. So he's a successful real estate entrepreneur focusing on helping others on their journey to financial freedom via passive income. So he's the founder, CEO of Dwellin.com, a multifamily syndication firm that has successfully sourced deals of over $40 million by working closely with sellers and with apartment syndicators across the country. Though Ola has only lived in the United States for a few years, he has successfully completed rehab projects in excess of $1 million. He continues to exceed investors' returns, building upon his successes on the real estate investing space. Ola likes to post his progress and encourage his community on more than 45,000 strong on Instagram. And so recently, he closed a 160 unit apartment building in Houston, Texas. Another 104 unit in Texas. Continues to meet or exceed investors' returns by doing value add deals in strong metropolitan areas. He enjoys working with new investors, so we're going to talk about that. And both here and abroad, it helped him become successful real estate investors. Finally, his firm has an aim to give back. He's got the One House Pledge, which is an initiative to donate a house to a family for Christmas. Right? Okay. Starting in Baltimore, which is probably a good place to start. And in his recent trip to the Philippines and Bali, Ola visits slums and is now working on a local initiative to help people in need. This is his why. See, one of the things that we talk about from Simon Sinek's book is start with why. Why, then how, then what. And so you've got something big. So because can't be the only thing you're chasing. Okay, you got to have something that's bigger than you that will drive you toward that. Ola, welcome to the Practical Wealth Show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Curtis. I wish my wife was here to hear that introduction again.
I know me. Listen, same thing. It's like, it's hard to be a prophet. It's like, listen, do you know I'm a big deal? Yeah, you taking trash out, buddy?
They don't care.
All right, so we're the same. It's like, all right. So yes. So tell them what didn't I tell them? Tell them what were you doing before you started doing this, and then what got you into real estate? I like to get your backstory.
That is such a good question. I think for folks listening to this podcast, it's sometimes there could be a big gap between who they're listening to and where they're at in their lives. So I want to be like the master, the professor of kind of making that connection, because I don't want people to feel like, man, this guy's like all the way up there, I can't even get there, because that's just not true. I did start with nothing. I've actually just been in the United States for 7 years, actually.
Wow.
The reason I want to emphasize on this is, if you are from this country, which I think is the best country on the planet, I can talk about that later. You have all the opportunities and you can do this. So not to be long-winded, of course, but I like to give that context so that people don't say, hey, I just closed the deal last month, no, actually in July, for $11 million in an apartment building just north of Austin. So I don't want people to feel like I can't do this. I want to make sure there's that background. So in any case, I want to tell you a little bit of my story. My wife and I moved to the United States, like I said, 7 years ago. Shortly thereafter, we got jobs, living the American dream, which is, go to work, come home, do it again, go to work, traffic on your way to work.
Is that the American dream? All right.
I thought that's what it was, right? You're taking notes.
Right.
So I just felt like, wow, I mean, I love America. This is great, but this is kind of monotonous. And is this all I'm going to do for the next, 30, 40 years of my life? And then I retire and then die? Like, there's gotta be, something more to life. I mean, don't get me wrong. My wife and I And ironically, at the time, we're living in a fancy luxury apartment, paying someone else cash flow. I didn't know that then, obviously. You don't know what you don't know. So as I was kind of wrestling with this thought of I want to do something else more than just going to, work and coming back, a friend of mine called me from the UK where I used to live, and said, hey, I'm going to be flying to Dubai to meet with some investors, and also we can kind of do a mastermind. You can help me with my business. Are you able to fly to Dubai and meet me? So obviously I did what every wise man does. I prayed about it, and then I asked my wife.
Can I go?
And this was
Right.
way back. Yeah, this is way before the pandemic, right?
Right.
Zoom wasn't like much of a thing like it is now with the pandemic. So she was like, well, can you guys Skype? Why do you have to fly all the way there? The reason I'm telling this story this certain way is because most people think success would come to them in some kind of like golden box with a red ribbon and fireworks in the background.
Right.
No, like success could be a call like, hey, do you want to come to this, real estate webinar, or do you want to come with me to this conference or whatever? So be mindful as you're going through your everyday life to look for those success cues, right?
Yeah.
Don't think success is going to come like somebody's going to write you a check for $1 billion. No, it could be a friend that invites you to come learn something, or it could be a book recommendation, right? So that's why I'm telling the story this way. In any case, I go to Dubai. I wasn't, in the desert quad biking. We're in a, pretty standard, I don't know, 2-3 star hotel for like 2-3 days with my friend, just kind of masterminding on his business. Not to your surprise, this business is, real estate, but he was actually doing this in the UK. So I thought, wow, I was looking at his books and I was like, this guy's making a lot of money. Like maybe I could do this thing, in the US. But I knew nothing about it. Pay attention, right? If you're listening to this, you don't have to know anything about anything, right? But what I did do was on my way back, I was thinking about this on the plane, and I got to the United States, and I went to my my best friend, Google.
Okay.
and I just started like Googling, real estate. What is real estate, right? And then I stumbled upon this website called biggerpockets.com. Got plugged into that. Shortly thereafter, I got plugged into the podcast. I listened from the very first podcast all the way through. And then, every guest would, mention a book, a certain book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I went to my second best friend, Amazon. If you want to be successful, you have to read. You can't skip that step. If you can see behind of Curtis' office here, there's a bunch of books, right? So being successful involves reading, unfortunately. Fortunately or unfortunately, I love reading, so I read a ton of books. Anyway, so I got that book, and the only way I could describe after reading this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, was my brain got an uppercut, right?
Okay.
I was like that going to work, come home, do it again thing that I was thinking about before I went to Dubai. Like that's what the guy was talking about. Like there's something else you can do.
Right.
You're
America, working for money, and the first lesson is rich people don't work for money. Very first lesson in Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? What do you mean?
Exactly.
Right.
They get money to work for them, right?
Right.
So, I read this book, and obviously I have a pretty disciplined character, right? I know that about myself, one of my strengths. So I just kind of went to work, right? I bought more books, and then, to cut the long story short, 2-3 months, after that, I bought my first building, right?
Wow,
this was
3 months. Okay.
11, yeah, this was not $11 million building. This was, a duplex in a pretty Class A area. I want to say that in Baltimore, Maryland, not far from John Hopkins, the property of which I still own to today. So, and then we moved into that. So we left our fancy apartments in Columbia, Maryland. That's where we're living at the time, to Baltimore, Maryland. So this was from suburbia to city, right?
I could never find thing. My best friend used to live in Columbia, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
So yes. So the difference.
Nice,
right?
Yes.
But I want people to pay attention though. Like I left this cushy, suburbia fancy luxury apartment to this duplex that we bought. My wife and I moved into the bottom unit of this duplex. We had tenants on the top. Right. But when I go to work and come back, I could never find parking. I had to take the trash out. I had to know what property taxes was. Right. But that's what you got to do. Right. But
and so you call that house hacking. How this is how you can get. So once you hear that, because he didn't start out buying 100-unit apartment buildings. Okay. He started out, he took action with 3 within 3 months of, well, how long did you listen to the podcast? Let's have them get into, because we always tell people investing is not about buying something, it's about becoming something, right? And so you invested in between your two ears first, right? With your two best friends, Google and Amazon.
You cannot skip that step. However,
yeah, you
like
can't skip that
you
step.
just
That's
can't.
what I want you to
Yeah,
hear. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think in terms of timeline, I'll probably say, listen to the podcast maybe 6 months, right? But I think it's really important to say this. You have to know thyself, right?
Yeah.
Like someone like me, I'm just extremely disciplined. I wake up at 4:30 like I did today, or 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm not saying you should do that, but I can do that. I try to go to sleep earlier. I meditate. I read every day. Like, you have to know yourself. Now, if you think you're not that kind of person and you can't do that, it might take you a year, right? If you want, I tell people when they come to me like, hey, I want to buy an apartment building, which, the last one I closed on 2 months ago was $11 million. What I say to people is, to get to that step, it could take you 5 years.
Yeah.
Up to 5 years. So realistically, but if you want to buy a duplex in, Philly, or, wherever you are in the country, if you're not in New York City and Los Angeles, you might be able to get something for like $300,000. Now, for that $300,000, we are in the best country on the planet, meaning you can actually get a mortgage for 3.5% down, backed by the federal government.
Right,
it's called
right.
an FHA loan.
Yes.
For, for first homeowners. I don't know anywhere else in the world, that does that.
You can't do that anywhere else in the world, right? Here's the other question. So I want to get a little granular right here for a sec. So how many properties would you say you looked at to find that deal?
Which one? The
first
deal?
one. The very first deal.
The first one. Not that many. Maybe not even 10 actually.
Okay.
Now on the flip side, on the large
10. It was more. It wasn't like, well, I found it and I bought it. You had to look at some.
No. Right. Yeah, I had to look at a bunch. Yeah. But it wasn't a lot though. But I want to make a major contrast. Like on my commercial stuff that I do now. We look at like 200-300 deals before we actually buy one. Like, it's ridiculous. Like right now in my workspace, we have like 1.8 billion, worth of assets that we found, and we've only bought 2 this year. So like and that 1.8 billion number is from 2020, just from last year to date. So it's a lot of deals that we look at. So that's on the commercial side. But on the residential side, I think things are really hot right now in the market, but you can still find a duplex depending on where you are in the country. Yeah.
So, but it's looking and analyzing. So if you look at the Buffetts and the Shark Tank people, and just start, they don't buy and hold and dollar cost average, but what they're doing is all Buffett does is analyze deals. All he reads the papers. He's looking for, now he's buying companies. He did buy Berkshire Hathaway so he could get a foot into real estate. So that should tell you something right there, right? And but it's all about, it's financial literacy. What I want to get out is, and this is where when we talk about, you're going to invest in your mindset, your skill set, and your network. Rich Dad Poor Dad is a book about accounting. That's what the book is about, right? The ability to read numbers, to understanding the difference between an asset and a liability. And so when Ola is looking at these deals, he's looking at the financials. He's looking at the area. He's looking at ways that you can create value from that deal for your investors. That don't let me put words in your mouth. So as I'm thinking that, I want you to hear the word. It's work, but it's learnable, and he teaches it. Okay, and so from your house hacking to getting into, what was that progression? How many of those did you do? And then when did you start realizing? So what he's doing is something called syndication, right?
Correct.
So talk about that timeline.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, like, you can't just go down the street and start buying apartments. Right. Like, it's a very complicated process. I mean, I'm humbled every single day. I'm on asset management calls, and the amount of people on the calls, like the amount of quotes that would go, like, it's just very complicated. So you need a mentor, essentially. That's my message, right? Like to do, just like a neurosurgeon, right? Like, they just don't show up to a hospital and start, cutting heads open. Like they go through like, years and years of, medical training and, go through school and things like that and get a residency. It's just the same thing. Like you can't ask people to give you, 50, 100K of their money, some of which could be someone's life savings to invest in an asset. And you have no idea, or you haven't learned, or you haven't been an apprentice. So I definitely encourage. That's what I did. I did a paid mentorship. I think there's a variety of reasons why you should do that. But I think a very quick one is when you have money, the brain works it's just very weird. But when you pay for something, you actually want to, if someone like me, because I try to be altruistic and I wanted to have a free course to just teach people. It just didn't really work because people weren't asking in the game.
People, what's the saying? When you pay attention.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. Yeah.
Because I want to do like free stuff, low cost stuff. And somebody has started to coach me now. I was like, nope, that's too cheap. They're not going to do it. They're not going to get anything out of it because they didn't put any money into it. So it's like, all right.
Exactly.
All right.
It's like the weirdest thing. It's like a mind. You got to unpretzel your mind to figure that one out. But that's just a fact.
And so how do you coach people? So it's two sides. Do you coach people and then also you provide opportunities for people to invest that they don't want to learn all this stuff? And let's say you make a lot of money. Let's say they make a lot of money. Let's say they're doing well. And they save a lot. They've got, a lot of money in their qualified plans, or they're just really good savers and they have the $50,000 or $100,000. They're are the people that deal with you from that standpoint need to be accredited investors?
Good question. So, not to kind of get into any SEC muddy waters, but typically they have to be accredited or sophisticated investors.
Okay.
And that would give them, a path to one of our deals as a passive investor. They're not going to be active or sit in the general partner position. So they would just basically ride on the cash flow on the deal and the tax benefits, right? Which I think we should really touch on as well. People think it's all about how much money you make, but in America, it's also how much of that money you keep.
How much you keep.
Let's
talk about that. See, because I always tell people, everything wealthy people do is to mitigate current and future taxation. And one of the things is that, now let's frame this, right? So this is not, I had lunch with, one time I was at a conference, I had lunch with Tom Wheelwright, Tax-Free Wealth, Kiyosaki's tax accountant, right? Robert Kiyosaki's tax accountant. And he says, listen, the tax program is a stimulus program, right? And so the government puts in a series of incentives to get you to do what they want done. And if you'll do what they want done, you won't pay any taxes. So all this, we're going to tax the rich. Y'all don't understand the tax code. Okay. And one of the things that we say, I'll say, well, look, don't hate the player, hate the game. Okay. Because you need to learn the game. Don't even hate the game. You need to learn how to play the game. Ola's been here 7 years and he learned the game. Some of y'all been sitting here for 45 and you're completely clueless. All right. So don't get me started with that. But here's the thing. So what does the government need done? They need jobs. Who provides jobs? Entrepreneurs, businesses, right? They need housing. They need food, and they need energy. Okay. So in this case, you're providing housing and there's incentives for you to do that. Okay. So now I just wanted to frame that. Let's talk about that. And because I want to understand where that comes from. It's not like some loophole. It's what they need done.
Yeah. I mean, where do I start? Like at the end of the day, right? The tax code, was created by the IRS / government.
Yes.
So it's not like, Jeff Bezos decided to not pay taxes, right? So I think let's start there, or Trump for that matter. But to kind of zone in on real estate, specifically multifamily apartment buildings, there are a couple of ways, right? So the one easy, method is depreciation, right? So if you're part of a syndication, you invest $100,000 in one of our deals, at the end of the year, the tax year, should we say, we will send you something called a K1.
Mm-hmm.
And a K1 is basically just a statement of how much we've paid you in cash flow, throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then also that would have a depreciation. But there's also something called cost segregation,
Mm.
right? It's kind of an accelerated method in which we, just segregate bits of the assets, right,
Mm-hmm.
of the
Mm-hmm.
property, and then depreciate in a quicker time frame. So even though, let's say you invest $100,000 and we've paid you, I'll just use round numbers, we paid you 20,000 for the year on that 100,000. Even though you've received $20,000 into your account, your paper K1 could show a loss of like $25,000. So now you're minus $5,000, in the red from a tax perspective, but you've actually received $20,000 in your account. So that's one way that you could actually leverage the tax benefits. So that way, when you take that K1 and apply that to your other, maybe
Your
your
other
personal
income,
taxes or whatever,
yeah. So
that's
if
an
you got a
offset.
job, a high W-2 job, that loss comes off of your earned income.
Exactly. So that's one way that we do that.
And that's not a loophole. That's just how it works. That's what the law says.
Exactly. This is 100% legal. Yes.
Yeah.
Just want to put that in
Because
there.
think about that. If he gets an apartment building, there people got to live somewhere, right? The people there, they need people to work. They need to live. Either he's paying taxes, right? You're paying property taxes. There's all kinds of
it.
a lot of property.
I gotta say that.
Right.
A
A
lot of
lot of
property
property taxes. Right? And so, because that local municipality needs him to develop stuff, so they have their tax revenue, because all government's local, like should be more local than it is, right? And so there's a lot of stuff generated. I was so stupid with the people in New York with the whole Amazon thing and AOC, because Bezos is not paying taxes. Yes, but I mean that's all of the jobs, payroll taxes, property taxes from you're just missing the forest between the trees because you don't understand economics, right? And you have an ideology that's false. Don't get me started. All right, so I want to morph into curve my libertarian rant, but you're getting done, you're helping people, and you're expanding the economy. So you're doing good work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
money follows value. You create value in the marketplace, and money, you have to create value to receive money. And you're creating value. Yeah. And that's just how it works. What else am I missing? Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would like to touch on as well is just for people to really understand that this exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
This method of building wealth, and it's not just at the very high up in terms of the assets that, for example, I'm buying.
Mm-hmm.
You can also in your local area find a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, which is basically what we consider small multifamily,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll sack it, right? So I'm speaking to that person that is saying, guys, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even have $10,000 to my name right now. So you can start there, meaning you can look at smaller properties, use the 3.5% FHA program, to get your first mortgage. And then kind of scale your way from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think that
you have to live it. Let's make that point, right? The 3.5% down is
correct.
It's because owner, see, what y'all got to understand, residential is up to 4 units, right? So the house hacking,
Correct.
you need to live in one, and you can do anything if you're focused on the big picture of creating financial freedom. You can live in your duplex, triplex, quad for a year and a half while you're getting yourself together, right? Living rent free, saving money, and learning how to do the next thing.
That's right. So, and I think at the end of the day, look, one of our biggest expenses is rent or / mortgage, right? So if you can figure that piece out where somebody's paying your mortgage, I think that's a good start. Then you can start to, accumulate wealth. And my wife and I, we had the same epiphany when we got our first deal. It's like, oh my goodness, I've never seen so much money in my account just in a few months of owning that duplex. So it's just really starting there. But then if you say, hey, I'm on the other extreme. I'm in my 40s or 50s, and I can't be, buying a duplex. But I've got some money parked away. I want to invest. Syndication is a good place for you where you can, get really good returns. I can obviously talk about a case study, on this deal we just closed on. Something like that. You can come in.
Let's talk
Get
about
some good
that. I
return.
want them to understand what's the work, but also the opportunities that exist. If you don't want to learn how to do the work, then Ola does the work, and I want you to hear how
Yeah.
good he is. Okay, so talk. Let's break that down. Break us a deal down for us.
Yeah. So this last year, for instance, we raised $5 million. So let's say you came in and you brought $100,000. I don't want to throw too much jargons out,
Mm-hmm.
but essentially this is the structure. The equity structure is you would get something called a 6% preferred rate of return. Preferred return, short for preferred return. What that means is we're going to give you 6% on your money first before we, the general partners, share in any profits whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So we are basically aligning interest with our investors, our passive investors, and say, hey, we'll give you a preferred return. So after you get that 6%, then we do a split, which is, in this case is a 60 to the investors and 40 to the partners. So on top of the 6% that you've received first, you also get an additional 60%. So that's kind of how that structure works. So, and that's just really just to align our interests with our investors, and obviously make sure that they get paid first before we even get paid. So that forces us to perform. I mean, I don't want to use the word forces us, but makes us perform because we have to.
Right. I don't even mind force. Okay. I need you to force you to be perform for me. Yes. And
yes,
make sure I
exactly. And
make
that's
money.
what we do.
Make sure our see, but your interests are aligned. It's not somebody just going to take your money and you don't see them again.
Exactly.
And because there's a lot of regulation going there. So you can't, it's hard to really do that. But what else?
And
so
it's not sustainable to do that, by the way. I'll just put that in there.
Right. You can't be in business long range and screw people. You know what I mean? You can't people, the market, you don't even have to, the SEC doesn't have to do it. The market will find you out.
Right.
And word of mouth will get out there and you won't be able to raise any capital because you don't, one of the things is, Ola can show you his performa, the deals he's got done and investors that he's performed for. And, would you say a lot of your money is repeat money, like people you've already done stuff for, they've gotten their money back out and they're like, what you got now, Ola? Let's what's the next thing?
Exactly. We're constantly looking for deals. That's, one of my focus here is reaching out to brokers. That's how we get most of our deals and really network.
Commercial
and
brokers.
Go out there. Correct.
Commercial brokers.
Yep.
That's exciting. I mean, that's I love that. That's big. I wish I had the bandwidth to learn it because because it's really, it's funny because it's really it's a business.
Absolutely. You're buying a business. Yes.
Yeah.
An apartment building as a matter of fact, I tell people buying an apartment is like kind of similar to running a country. I know I sound ridiculous, but basically it's the idea you buy it for like 3 to 5 years. You come in, you do your best. Not everybody's going to like you. Some are going to hate you.
Right.
And then you pass it on to the next group. And that's really, I mean, most people drive past these things every day, these big apartments, but that's really what they are essentially.
Do you try to exit in like 3 to 5 years and move on to something else? Okay.
Correct. Right now we're trying to, capex this particular asset, which means we're trying to spend capital expenditure to, implement our business plan. So we put in a dog park, for instance, we put in a playground, and we're doing some of the exterior woodwork, things like that. So we will burn, a bit of money, probably close to $1 million just in capital to spruce up the exterior and the interiors, and realize those gains, of course, in rent premiums. But then there's so much you can do in your 3-year timeline or 3 to 5 year timeline, then you gotta move to the next deal.
And so what happens is once they do that, see, it's just different. So a lot of y'all are real residential investors, you're waiting for appreciation, which is the opinion of the appraisers in that area. Residential area, right? So tell them the difference. What's the difference between that and what you just described? What drives the appreciation?
So Yeah, so basically, we could just coin a term, forced appreciation, right? So with these larger assets, there are specific things that the current owner isn't doing, because he or she is willing or unable to, right? So then we can come in and do those things and force appreciate that asset, because on the commercial space, what we care about is the NOI, which is a net operating income. That's how the value of the asset is determined, including the cap rate. Don't want to throw too many jargons out. So we have that income, so we can basically boost that income depending on the activities we basically carry out during our old term. Obviously, like you said, on the residential side, you just don't have that luxury, like the house is worth what is worth based on the neighbor's house, or just the houses
Right,
down the
right.
street.
This is
But for
judged by the cash
multifamily,
flow that you're able to create, right? And so
correct,
when we
the
talk
NOI,
about
correct.
the Rich Dad Poor Dad is about accounting. So you've got your gross revenue minus your expenses, including the mortgage you have to service, right? Is that how you do it? And it is your NOI, your net operating income, or no, it's minus the expenses equals your net operating income, and then your debt service comes out of that.
It's below the line. We
Below,
call it below the line.
below the line.
Yeah,
So as
below the
long and
NOI.
so when you're calculating stuff, even with your single families, you've got to say, okay, look, this is what I rent for. This is the, let's say on a single family, it's the property taxes, it's all that stuff that comes, and then here is how much debt this will service, and you still end up with a profit, and then that kind of determines your offer. See, so you've got to read the numbers. You don't even have to go look at the houses, because a lot of times you can tell from the numbers whether or not it's worth your time. And so when they're saying, and you're not looking at 100 deals like going to the place, are you?
No,
No.
that would be an absolute waste of time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay. That's what I want people to hear. Like there's ways to speed up this process and be efficient, and then to see, okay, well, that looks good. That looks good. Okay, now we can here's 100. Now we got about 10 that we want to do a deep dive in, and then maybe we'll make offers on 2. Right. That's the process.
There's a method to the madness.
Yeah. It's a numbers game. So folks, I don't care what business that you're in, you're in the math business. You only have one, you're in the math business, you're in the arithmetic business of looking at stuff. And so you have to have the patience. You need to know what you're looking for. Right. And what is your outcome? So would you say initially what was the goal for you and your wife when you started getting into this? What drove you? What was your why?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have heard this, just kind of like financial freedom, just, the freedom to do, what you want, when you want, and with whoever you want to. I think that's kind of like the major driver.
But was that a passive goal, or did that was like got you up in the morning at 4 o'clock? Like, a lot of people's like, oh, I want to be financially free, but they don't want to do anything. Like, you got to have goals that pull you out of the bed in the morning.
Yeah, I think for us, it's just really like, how can we contribute, right? When you get to a place in your life where you can do whatever you want, usually comes with cash, right? You have to have cash and wealth
to contribute. Right?
So for us, kind of our goal is to use that to give back to the community, to help others. That's our why. So
as we finish, tell them a little bit about that. I wanted to share that, because so a lot of you all, we should be thinking about stuff bigger than ourselves, and what things are important to you that you can get behind. And so tell me a little about that. I love that. I want you to share that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're here to serve, right? We're not just here for ourselves to amass as much wealth as we can just for ourselves. I mean, if you're paying attention, for those that are super wealthy in America, they're giving a lot of that money away, as they're still alive and after they've gone. So that's really not the goal, just to amass wealth, but also just to serve. There's a lot of people that are less fortunate in our country and other parts of the world that we want to help as little as we can. So I think that, for us, that's a massive motivation for us to really just keep going. And
so tell me about the house you gave away, the house and the
we have not done it, so that's an aspiration.
Oh, that's aspiration. Okay, so but that's right. You got to have a aspiration. That's what it drives you. Okay, that's good. I was reading that wrong. So okay, that's awesome.
So the 1 house pledge we're working on. Yes.
That is fantastic. So it's like that what is my pledge? That's what I'm thinking about. Like, what is my, because my wife is, we're giving money. I said, like, we need to think about what things are important to us. So as we build our businesses, that should be part of your mission statement, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's really that's a good lesson for me. So in my note and in my
Yeah.
page of notes that I've
Mm-hmm.
taken.
Glad. I'm
And
glad. Glad I could inspire.
yeah, yeah. So um how can they find out about more? What would you like them to do? So to find out more about you, what's the best way to reach out? Who should be reaching out? And if you want to specify a little bit of and how they should reach
Yeah,
out.
anyone can reach out. If you're a fly on the wall listening to me and Curtis having a chat today, and you're like, "Hey, I want to reach out," wherever you are, I'm there. Spooky. I'm on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, Facebook. I'm everywhere. So just Google my name, or just go on Instagram and just put Ola Dantis,
Mm-hmm.
OLADANTIS, or just if you're watching this on video, you can see this right here. Invest with Ola.com. Invest with Ola.com. So that's OLA, invest with OLA.com. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that would redirect you to our website, or just DM me on Instagram.
There you go. So you can get at them in a multitude of different ways
Of
and
places. Yeah.
or places. And
Yeah.
so if you're you want to learn, how to house hack, I'm sure he talks about that a lot. And then, let's say you make good money. I'm not giving any investment advice. You got to talk to him, kick the tires, and do all the appropriate stuff. But what I try to do is I'm not here to tell you what to invest in. What I want to let you know through our show is that there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, right? And there's a lot of things out there, and the world is full of people, ideas, and money. And so you need to invest in your number one asset, which is you. You invest your mindset, your skill set, your network. And then as you save and accumulate capital, let's look for places to deploy your capital where you can get a ROI and save money on taxes, which keeps more in your pocket. And so what you want to begin to do is explore that. So follow Ola, listen to what he's got going on. He mentioned a couple of things. We're putting notes, bigger pockets, subscribe to my show first, but listen to bigger pockets, especially if your asset class of choices is is real estate. You've got a show too. Don't you have a show?
I sure do.
What
Yep.
mention that? Yeah, I knew it was something
Yeah.
else I was forgetting.
No worries. Like the dwelling show. I mean, when you get to the website, or just Google my name, Ola Dantis podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Curtis was on a few weeks ago. So yeah, listen to that. And yeah, and if you have any questions, just reach out to me directly as well.
All right. Awesome. Well, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this. He dropped a lot of nuggets on here that you want to hear. I want you to hear his story, the focus, and then he had to learn stuff, and then he took action. Tony Robbins calls it personal power, the ability to get yourself to take action, you discipline. And that's what I want you to get out of this. So, Ola, thanks for joining us again on the Practical Wealth Show.
Absolute pleasure. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Curtis.
You're welcome. Guys, go out there and make it a great day.